Alrighty, so now the group stage is over in terms of the Leagues Cup and the knockout round begins. You know what that means? Time to fill out the bracket and predict who's going to win this year's Leagues Cup. Now, obviously, before I begin this video, obviously, I'm wearing gray, which means that usually when I wear like a gray jacket like this, it means it's a prediction video. I don't want to wear a team jersey here because if I wear a team jersey, in this video or wear any color of a team jersey, people is gonna say, well, you just jinxed that team by basically wearing that team color. So again, that's why I wear gray, right, to make it neutral. And also, this is just my prediction of what I expect to happen throughout these knockout, who's gonna advance, and eventually who's going to lift the trophy. And you're gonna find out in just a bit to see whether or not if Inter Miami can repeat as the Leeds Cup champion. So we start off on the very left side, which is America versus Atlas. And throughout this uh, prediction, I'm not going to be afraid to make some bold prediction and make some surprising upset. And this is one of them. I am going to go with Atlas winning this one. And again, this might be a surprising move because everybody think that America is one of the favorites of moving on not only in this game but also potentially winning the whole competition. Consider they were just the defending Liga MX champion. But the problem I will say about America, and I'll say the same thing about the Columbus Crew, the two team that getting the automatic round of 32 spot, is the fact that it's been a while since they had a competitive game. I know, yes, Club America and both Columbus have played some friendly game. Club America, I think they play against Aston Villa and Chelsea, whereas Columbus, they of course play against Aston Villa and absolutely destroyed Aston Villa in that game with Cujo getting a hat trick. But those are not competitive games. Those are just games to kind of keep your match sharpness. Once you get into this competition, it's a whole different animal, and we'll see whether or not if both of these teams will, of course, be sharp. But I'm picking Atlas in this one because I've been very impressed of how Atlas has been so far in this tournament. I mean, we saw in the games that they had against Houston and RSL, they went down to Houston and get an impressive 1-0 win in place that not a lot of team is able to get a win on the road against the Dynamo. And then we saw in the game against RSL, well, they did end up on the losing end. They were losing that game because Nelson Palacio just scored an absolute goal. So in that one to win it for RSL, and that I thought they played well in that game as well. And this is a team that I even said they could surprise a lot of people. This could be the dark horse Liga MX team that could actually go much deeper than what people have. And I know even though this game, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be pretty much a game full of Club America fans at Snapdragon Stadium down in San Diego. I would not be surprised if Atlas can prevail and able to move on to the next round. And not to mention, America hasn't really been doing that well in Liga MX so far. They kind of suffering a bit of the title hangover with the way that they've only won half of their games, and currently I think they're sitting in sixth place in the Apertura standings. Now, moving on into the next one, which is St. Louis versus Portland. And again, this video, I won't be surprised it might be long because there's a lot of games we have to go over. But in the game between St. Louis and the Portland Timbers, I'm gonna go Portland. Again, St. Louis. I think this if I'm not mistaken, it's a home game. For St. Louis. Again, I also should have look at the schedule to see which team it is. I basically put the home team at first as it is the case, and with the way that on the bracket it said St. Louis is labeled first. I'm assuming they're the home team in this one. And I know the Timbers had their struggle at times this season on the road, but I do think that they're in a better form. And this is a team that, again, could be a bit of a surprise with the way that it seems like they're getting hot at the right time. And in some way, they kind of reminds me a little bit of Nashville last season too, where Nashville got hot at the right time and went all the way to the final. And knowing that the Timbers have also been a team that know to go deep into the tournament. I mean, this team only went and gone all the way to win MLS's back tournament. I think they'll have enough to face against the St. Louis side that I'm pretty sure St. Louis is happy the fact that they are able to move on to the next round. But again, I don't think they have the the quality to of course knock down Portland in this match. Then we go to the next one, which is Toluca versus Houston. Ooh, this is a tough one because Toluca has looked really good so far in the group stage, but we saw what happened last year when Toluca looked really good in terms of the group stage, and even in the round of 32, they meet Minnesota and they lost that game. And yeah, I mean, Houston looked very impressive in the last game against RSL 2. Probably the one of the most impressive performance that they have. You know what? I'm gonna go with the home team in this one. Again, the Dynamo is a really tough team to beat when they're playing at home, and I'm pretty sure Ben Olsen's team will carry that momentum and somehow how able to knock off a Toluca side that again they're a team that I think could easily go deep. But at the same time, I do worry that just like last season, is the good run that they had in the group stage is going to be undone because they're facing against a team that also is doing very well. That is the Houston Dynamo. Then we go to FC Juarez versus the Colorado Rapids. I'm gonna go with FC Juarez in this one, and again, I really want to pick the Rapids to move on because their late heroics in the last game is the reason why they got to this stage in the first place, and Chris Armour's team always had that never say die mentality, but something tells me FC Juarez, they're another team that has looked very impressive in the group stage, a team that not many people thought that they were gonna go too much, and I'm pretty sure they're well aware of what happened last year when they lost 7-1 to LAFC. They definitely don't want to repeat the same thing against a Rapids team who, even with the late heroics, the Rapids have not played very well so far in the group stage. Now, part of that is because they did not have Georgi Mihailovic, and they are going to be able to have him in this game, but I do think that FC Juarez might just have enough quality to edge out this Rapids team that just barely made it into the next round. They would have lost this game. It would have been FC Juarez versus Club Leon, and that would have been even a more tough decision to pick who's going to move on. Then we move on into the next one, which is Seattle versus the LA Galaxy. And one thing I also want to mention is the team that is hosting are not teams that, of course, won the group, but also it's just based on the ranking, which again, that's one of the more controversial part of the Leeds Cup, where yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense the fact that if you're gonna have team that win the group and you don't get a chance to host because of the rankings, I mean, what's the point of playing in the group stage? But nevertheless, in this game between Seattle and the Galaxy, I'm gonna go with the Galaxy again. Seattle seems like they're once again dealing with some injury issue. They have a couple of players that went down with injury and maybe not available in this game, and that includes João Paulo too, who also got injured in the last game, and Pedro de la Vega, who just doesn't seem like he's able to stay healthy. I mean, that's not a shocker. I mean, you knew honestly that's been the thing that I worry about Seattle when they decided to sign him in the beginning of the season, that he has had a long list of injury concern, and it's no surprise that that's kind of is played out so far. So yeah, and with the way that the Galaxy have just looked really good, not only in league play but also in the group stage as well. The defense is going to be something I am a little concerned because they did not play well that defense against Chivas, but I think they have enough firepower to move on into the next one. Then we go to Vancouver versus Pumas. I'm gonna go with Pumas in this one. Pumas is definitely one of the stronger team this season in Liga MX, and I know Vancouver has done well in the group stage as well, but this is just kind of similar to what we see where Vancouver unfortunately not only get a Liga MX team but get a really tough Liga MX team. Like, right, I feel like Vancouver just had no luck when it comes to getting to the knockout round in these kind of competition. Whenever they face against a Liga MX team, they always seems like they're on the short end of the stick facing against a really tough Liga MX team, and this is no exception of them now have to face against one of the toughest team, that is Pumas. Then we go to the San Jose Earthquakes versus Necaxa. Yeah, I'm picking Necaxa to win this one. Again, I think that this one is not easy. I mean, you could think that maybe the Quakes have a chance to do so because somehow they're able to get into the next round. They got some home cooking in this game, but the thing is, Necaxa has been very impressive in this tournament. Again, in that game against Minnesota, if it wasn't for Dane Sinclair standing on his head, Necaxa would have easily won that game, and they even shown it in the Seattle game. I know Seattle didn't play their strongest team, but they really cut apart that Sounders team throughout the whole game, and against a Quakes team that, again, the only reason why they moved on into the next round is somehow able to win against Chivas, and basically Chivas being a bit of a laughing stock right now in Liga MX. Yeah, I do think that Necaxa should have enough to beat a Quakes team that, if you talk about one of the weakest team in the round 32, I think the Quakes are definitely make that it. I'm still kind of stunned the fact that they made it into this stage, and I'm just gonna cherish the fact that they made it this stage. Consider there's not a lot of things to be cherished as a San Jose Earthquakes fan this season. Then we move on to the next one, which is LAFC versus Austin, and honestly, I am just so tempting to pick Austin to win this one because Austin this Leeds Cup they have done almost a lot of improbable thing of beating the likes of Rayados and Pumas, two of the strongest team in Liga MX. But ultimately, I have to pick LAFC in this one. Obviously, LAFC being the home team. If this was at Q2 Stadium, I would definitely would absolutely think to pick Austin in this one because there's just something about Austin somehow defying all logic, beating against these teams that they're getting absolutely outplayed, but they still able to move on to the next round. And maybe this might be another game to do so, where they get absolutely outplayed by LAFC and they able to move on as a result. And LAFC themselves, they haven't really looked that impressive in the Leagues Cup group stage too. I mean, in the first game, they lose in a or no, they won that game against Cholos, but Cholos played relatively well, especially in the first half, and then in the second half, or in the second game against Vancouver, they lost that game in a PK show despite coming back. So yeah, again, it is very tempting to put Austin moving on, but I'm just gonna say LAFC is gonna do it. I think they'll definitely have the superior power to move on into the next round. It's kind of in some way Austin is in a similar situation of what I see FC Juarez was last season when they play LAFC, where I'm tempted to put FC Juarez, but I'm gonna just put LAFC because they have the more superior power, and FC Juarez, just like Austin, was a team that no one expected them to make it into the round of 32. Then we move on into the other side of the bracket, and this is where I'm gonna have to move my seat a little bit to basically write down the team, and also I gotta go a little quicker in this video because this video is already 12 minutes long. We go with FC Cincinnati versus Santos Laguna in that top right. This is gonna be FC Cincinnati winning this one. And I expect them to win this one relatively easy. I mean, I know they haven't been impressive so far in the group stage, but against Santos Laguna, again, talk about one of the weakest team right now in the round 32. I think Santos Laguna is definitely one of the weaker team. They got absolutely spanked by DC, which was one of the worst team in the league this season in the group stage, and they only were able to squeeze by against Atlanta in the PK shootout. So there's no doubt that this Cincinnati should be heavy favorites in this game, and I think they should be able to move on into the next round. Then we get Philly versus Montreal, and yeah, I'm gonna say Philly's gonna win this one. Again, Montreal, they're another team that I would say they're one of the weaker team in the round of 32 and kind of just able to squeeze by into the next round, getting that big win against Atletico de San Luis in regular time. But even then, that they didn't look that impressive in that game, especially at the back and facing against a Union side that there's no doubt that this is why with them getting that equalizer against Cruz Azul was so big for the Union because if they didn't get that equalizer and lose that game, they would have had to face against Orlando City, and that would have been even a much tougher task compared to face against Montreal. So I expect Philly to move on into the next round. Then we go with DC versus Mazatlan. Now this game is supposed to be a home game for DC, but knowing the playing condition at Audi Field was unplayable in the last game, that's why their game against Santos was moved to Subaru Park in Philly. We'll see whether or not if this is going to be a home game for DC. And oh boy, this is a bit of a tough one because Mazatlan has kind of surprised us again in this tournament. They've been able to do well in this tournament like they did in the last tournament. But ultimately, I think DC should have enough. I think they should be able to move on, especially with that home cooking into the next round. Then we go to another very high marquee kind of matchup in the round of 32 that could easily maybe be a matchup in the later round, and that is Orlando versus Cruz Azul. So again, Orlando, even though they top the group, the bad news is they face against a Cruz Azul side that Cruz Azul will be very upset. The fact that they did win the PK show to at least make it into the next round, but as a result, now they have to face against a tougher opponent that is Orlando instead of facing against Montreal. But you know what? I'm gonna say Orlando's gonna do it. I think Orlando has enough to get over Cruz Azul. I mean, again, I know Cruz Azul has looked progressive so far, not only in league plays itself, but they're definitely one of the stronger team in this tournament. But one thing that I think that is a flaw for Cruz Azul is the finishing. The finishing has not been great at all. Even in the game against Charlotte, they dominated that game, just couldn't finish. And even in the game against the Union, they dominated the game, only scored one goal and left the Union a chance to sneak a point out of and backdoor. And against an Orlando side that I know they're going to be missing one of their players because I think one of their player got a red card. Forgot who it was that got the red card for Orlando City in the last game against Atletico. That's the San Luis. With the way that it feels like this Oscar Rara team has really revitalized themselves, I can see Orlando could go into a deep run. There again, I say the same thing about Portland, kind of going through for a bit of a Nashville as kind of run like we did last season, make it deep in the tournament when nobody expected. I think Orlando could be that team, and I said it before too. I do believe with the way that Orlando has looked really hot in the last couple of games, this is a team that can definitely go deep and really surprise a lot of people. And knowing the fact that they're also a team that have done well before in tournament play, especially in the MLS's back tournament when they went to the final. Imagine if it's going to be Orlando versus Portland in the Leagues Cup final, a repeat of the final in the MOS's back tournament. Then we go to the next one, and this one is probably the most marquee matchup out of all of them in terms of the opening round, the knockout round. It's Tigres versus Pachuca. I'm gonna say Tigres is gonna get this. And Pachuca, I know that they're the defending CONCACAF Champions Cup champion, but they've also kind of had their struggles so far early this season in the Apertura season, and not to mention losing to Toronto FC. Seriously, on I mean I know it's a road game for them, but yeah, I mean now I did not expect that and that again. Tigres. This is a team that I would say that they are probably one of the favorites, if not the favorites, to win this tournament. You know that this is a team that is packed with so much star power in this team, and whenever they also face against an MLS team, get ready for a hard time because again, this team is just so stacked, both up on the attack, in the midfield, in the defense, and in the goalkeeping as well. And I expect this is a team that could be carrying the flag of Liga MX as we go deep into this tournament. Then we got New England versus NYCFC. You know what? I'm gonna say NYCFC will edge out New England in this one, even though I know NYCFC had their struggles on the road, and I know that they completely melt down against FC Cincinnati. But the good news is that at least in that game that they had the meltdown, it was kind of almost like a meaningless game. They only decide whether they finish first and second. Though, having said that, it does kind of come with a cost because when you look at this lower bracket, I think out of all the different region in this bracket, this one is probably the toughest one because you got some teams like Tigres, Miami, and even Columbus in the same group as well. This group is going to be really feisty, and it could be a bloodbath with the way how many good matchup is going to be. But yeah, I think NYCFC should have enough in this one against a Revs team that is just injured to hell right now. Next one we got Miami versus Toronto FC. So yeah, I have to pick Miami in this one. Again, I know Toronto they had a good Leagues Cup run. Again, they surprised a lot of people by beating Pachuca at home, but when they face against Inter Miami and knowing the fact that Inter Miami has a really good record against Toronto in the league, like TFC, they're a team that for whatever reason they just really struggle when they play against Inter Miami, unable to get wins against them. And I even mentioned that them winning against Pachuca might be the worst possible thing that they could do because yeah, now that they, well, I wouldn't say it's the worst possible thing because in some way it's like pick your poison. Do you either want to face Tigres or do you want to face against Inter Miami to have a shot of moving into the next round? Both of those thing doesn't seem like it's a good possibility for them. So yeah, again, unfortunately, they have to pick the option of pulling that upset against Pachuca. Then maybe give them some hope against an Inter Miami team that, yeah, I have a feeling Inter Miami is going to be one of those teams. Even without Messi, this team should be one of the favorites of going deep and looking to repeat as champion of the Leeds Cup. Then we go to Columbus versus Sporting KC. It's got to be Columbus that's going to move on. And again, I said the same thing about Club America before, how The rest, is that going to cause some problem? It might be, but the good news for Columbus, unlike America, where they have a tougher Liga MX opponent to face, I think Columbus should be able to beat against a Sporting KC side that they look okay in the group stage, but yeah, they're not gonna win against Columbus, especially on the road. Sporting KC is absolutely putrid this season on the road and against the defending MLS Cup champion that Wilfred Nancy's side. This feels like it's kind of a redemption kind of tournament for him, because knowing how it hurts for them to lose in the final in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they want to get some redemption to trying to go deep in this tournament itself. But unfortunately, they just happen to picking one of the toughest group, and probably actually not even one of the toughest group, but the toughest part of the bracket. Like whoever come out of this, I feel like could be the favorites to win it all in this Leeds Cup tournament. Then we move back to here. We got Atlas versus the Portland Timbers. Ooh, this is a tough one. I mean, I want to say Atlas could beat the Timbers, because again, this is a team that can surprise a lot of people. But I think the Timbers should get this. Again, this is a home game for the Portland Timbers, as it is the case whenever the Timbers, of course, or actually whenever if an MLS team meet a Liga MX team, unless of course you're America or Tigres. But I think Tigres has like home field advantage up to a certain point of the period, where they can have their hub that they can call off. But yeah, I think with the way that the Timbers, they're making Providence Park look like a fortress again. They have been unbeaten there in the last 9 games out of all competition. I think that should be enough for them to edge out against this last time. Then we go to the next one, which is the Houston Dynamo versus FC Juarez. I'm gonna go with Houston in this one. Again, Houston will have that home cooking in their favor as well, and I know it's not gonna be an easy task to face against FC Juarez, but I do think Ben Olsen team should have enough to move on into the quarterfinal. Then we go to the Galaxy versus Pumas. Oh boy, this is where it gets a little bit tough, because again, I do think that as we get into the quarterfinal, there's going to be chances that we're going to see more Liga MX team there. I mean, right now, I'm with the way that I'm looking at it, I can sense that maybe we could have just like one or two Liga MX team left in terms of once we get to the quarterfinal, and that kind of feels unrealistic, because you would expect Liga MX team should go deep on the Leagues Cup. After last year, they weren't able to do so. But yeah, oh boy, this is a tough one, because my mind says the Galaxy should have enough firepower against this Pumas team. But my concern, obviously, for the Galaxy is definitely going to be on the defensive front. And while I said, I had a tough time maybe a little bit with Seattle as well, though I think they edge out Seattle mainly because Seattle is dealing with a bit of an injury crisis, and they're not as potent on the attack right now. That's different for Pumas. Pumas is really good on the attack. So because of that, I'm gonna say Pumas gonna do it. I think Pumas, uh, with the way that they're more well balanced, I think the Galaxy will put a good fight against them. But I think Pumas should, because they're more well rounded. I think they should be able to move on into the next round. Then we go to LAFC versus Necaxa. I'm gonna go with LAFC again. Necaxa is gonna put up a good fight in this one, but LAFC is one of the team that is heavy favorites to go all the way in this tournament, and that I expect they should be able to they're gonna have trouble a little bit against the Necaxa, but I think they should have the quality to move on to the next round. Then we go into one of my favorite matchup that I've seen, which is FC Cincinnati versus the Philadelphia Union. I mean, know that when this matchup comes, there it is going to be not only some goal scoring, but some craziness, as we always see between Cincinnati and the Philadelphia Union. And you know what? I'm gonna say I'm gonna say the Union's gonna get revenge against Cincinnati. I mean, again, Cincinnati, my big question obviously is going to be on the defensive front, and while they will have the firepower on the attack to help them, it's the defense that I am really concerned, and it's been shown in these group stage game, and even going back to league play, that defense has been relatively weak. And I know they are going to get reinforcement, but is it going to be enough in time for this game against the Union side? That seems like the Union have started to find their stride a little bit. And again, the Union they're definitely taking this competition seriously because this might be the last chance that they might actually win some trophy the in this current core that they have. They know that this current core that they have, they might be decided to change it up and pretty much tear down the core this off season. Though we'll see if they once they get back to league play, if they go on a good run, maybe uh the ownership group might have different ideas. But yeah, the Union, I think they're gonna get revenge against this Cincinnati side that I know earlier in the meeting between both of these teams, it was a very hotly contested game, and that was back when the Union wasn't even doing very well. They were facing against a red hot Cincinnati team, and they gave Cincinnati all they can handle in that game, and I expect should be a tightly a fair game as well. Then we go to DC versus Orlando City. Yeah, I think Orlando is going to win this one again. Orlando has way better firepower compared to DC. And while I think I am predicting DC to go a little bit further than I anticipated, I think this is where they're gonna fall against a much stronger Orlando City side to move on into the quarterfinal. Then we go to Tigres versus NYCFC. Yeah, it's gonna be Tigres. No question, it's gonna be Tigres that's gonna win this one. Again, I expect Tigres to be a team that can go deep and carry the flag for Liga MX, and that yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say the Tigres should get this one. NYCFC will definitely put up a fight, but they're no match in terms of the firepower that Tigres is going to give. And then we move on into another tough one. Oh boy, this is where again this group it's gonna be really tough to predict who's gonna go deep because there's just so many teams that I'm basically picking to move on to the quarterfinal that I could easily get wrong because of what we could potentially see in the quarterfinal of this group, and this is one of them: Inter Miami versus Columbus. I mean, this feels like a heavyweight matchup that we could definitely see this matchup in the Eastern Conference Final this season. And oh boy, I mean, I'm gonna go with Columbus. Mainly because for Inter Miami, I think the difference obviously is if Messi was playing in this game and at the top of the game, there's no doubt I'm gonna say Miami is gonna go on to win this one, and they might go deep again. But again, Columbus, they I know they have been going for a bit of a break, but they look really impressive in those friendly game. And again, this is a team that Wilfred Nancy side is on a mission to trying to avenge their Leeds Cup, or not their Leagues Cup, I'm sorry, but their CONCACAF Champions Cup loss against Pachuca, and that there's no doubt that I think they should just about edge Inter Miami, though it's not going to be by a lot. In fact, the other thing is I'm not sure if this is going to be a home game for Columbus in this one. If this is a home game for Columbus, and knowing Columbus has been really good this season at Lower Dog Field, there's a chance that I think they would be heavy favorites in terms of moving on into the next round against an Inter Miami side that they'll definitely have some firepower, but I do think that this without Messi this team isn't as strong as what some people would think, even though this team could also be a capable team to go deep, and they have already shown many people before that they don't necessarily need Messi to still roll over most team and able to get it over the line against most team. Then we move into the quarterfinal, and now started to predict who's gonna go to the semifinal. And this is again where it started to get even tougher because this is where we get into the stage where there's a lot of really good teams. And we'll start with Portland versus the Houston Dynamo. Um, Again, I think Portland's gonna do this. Again, I do truly believe that the Timbers. Actually, I will say one thing I will say is this also can depend on who's gonna host this game. I think Houston might get a chance to host this, and if that's the case, then there's the upper edge on that. But I'm gonna just think that Portland is gonna host this game. I think they'll edge them out because of it. I mean, I really think that whoever hosts this game will get a huge upper edge because both of these teams has been very good this season at home. But I'm just gonna say the Timbers. This is a team that it just feels like this team is destined to go deep into tournament with the way that they have been red hot right now and carry the momentum. And I know Houston is a team that they're capable of making some surprising run in the tournament play. I mean, they made it all the way to the Western Conference Final last season for crying out loud. But again, I do think that in this matchup, Portland is going to not only have that experience in terms of tournament play, but should be able to have enough firepower compared to this Dynamo team. But this Dynamo team does have firepower themselves, but I think the Timbers right now has one of the more lethal one and should be able to move on into the next round. Then we go to LAFC versus Pumas. Now, last year, when LAFC, of course, were in this stage, they were playing against Rayados, and yeah, they looked good in that game against Rayados, and then it just kind of fall apart in that game against Rayados, and eventually losing out, and Rayados was the one that moved on into the semifinals. So they're really looking to try not to do that against Pumas this time. And again, Pumas is not going to be an easy task whatsoever. But I do think that LAFC should have enough to move on into the next round. By the way, there's now rumors saying that Antoine Griezmann could be the latest player to join LAFC. And while I know he's not going to be ready for this tournament, and also speaking being of Antoine Griezmann, his longtime French teammate Olivier Giroud, there could be a chance that he could be ready for these knockout out stage games. So you add him more firepower on this LAFC attack. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people are saying LAFC could go deep in this tournament, and that yeah, I do think that they should be have enough to beat Pumas. But no, it's not gonna be easy. There's probably not gonna be a lot to separate between both of these teams. It might even go to a PK shootout as well. Now moving on into the other quarterfinal. Now looking at the eastern part of the quarterfinal, we got Philly versus Orlando City. I'm gonna say Orlando, mainly because up to this point I have full belief that Philly could go deep in this tournament. But my concern, of course, with Philly is that the deeper they go into the tournament, the more they're likely that there's a stage where they just kind of self imploded and unable to move on into the next round. And one of the things I will still say about the Union that I am a little bit concerned that I picked them this deep is the defense. And I know Andre Blake has been lights out so far, and it's no surprise that ever since Andre Blake is back between the stick, this team has looked much better. When it comes to not conceding as much goal, the defense is still a problem for this team. It's just Andre Blake kind of masked some of the issue because of his incredible save compared to Simla, who Simla was kind of an average goalkeeper, and when you put an average backup goalkeeper and a back line that pretty much has underachieved in every single way, it's no surprise the Union would get shipping up goals left and right. So yeah, against a strong Orlando City side that is very compact on their defense, and they're started heating up on the attack. Again, this Orlando City side started reminds me of last season where they really started to heat up and really started to 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 do well in these last couple of games. I think they'll have enough to move on into the semifinal. Which brings us to the next game, which is Tigres versus the Columbus Crew. Again, as I mentioned before, it was always going to be tough to predict who was going to come out of what really is kind of the region of death, with the way that there's so many teams that you could really argue that could get themselves into the semifinal stage and even went all the way to the final. But in the end, I'm going to say Tigres is going to do it. I think they're going to get their revenge against Columbus. I mean, I know Columbus will have a mission to prove when it comes to moving deep into the tournament. But again, Tigres also have a mission to do so, and especially with the way that they know what happened in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and getting knocked out in their home soil. That I think that stings even as much as Columbus losing in the final against Pachuca, and they know that they do not want to have that feeling again. And when you get a Tigres team that is not only have a chip on their shoulder but wants some revenge for a match that happened, usually they're able to win those revenge match. So I do think that Tigres will move on, and mainly because I just don't see how we're gonna have an all MLS semi final heading into. I mean, I know this year so far MLS has the upper edge over Liga MX team, but I really hardly see how there's gonna be just like no Liga MX team that's gonna make it to the quarterfinal. Which brings us to this match between the Portland Timbers versus LAFC in the semifinal. Again, a pretty tough one to predict, but you know what? I'm gonna say Portland will do it. I think they'll beat LAFC again. LAFC, similar to what I said about the Philadelphia Union. The deeper they get into the tournament, the more concerned I do when it comes to like these big games. Again, that big game narrative that I talk about LAFC, that narrative, I don't think it's completely gone. I know they did win MLS Cup and that kind of shed the big game narrative, but many people will definitely brings up that, well, yeah, they won that game, and it was mainly because of the hero of Gareth Bale, and not to mention or Gareth Bale, and not to mention they were facing a game against a team that also seems like they always choke in the biggest moment, that is the Philadelphia Union. And ever since we've seen in these kind of big game kind of moments, LAFC has failed to deliver, and against a Timber side that, again, they look like a rejuvenated team. This is a team that I think can go deep and can go all the way to the final to face against an LAFC side that, again, I feel like at some point, LAFC will make a deep run in the tournament, and then they falter at the very end, even when they're favorites. And this maybe could be that kind of game against a Portland Timber side. Then we go to Orlando versus Tigres, and oh boy, this is going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, Orlando would want to get some revenge against Tigres after they fought them tooth and nail in the CONCACAF Champions League a couple of years ago. And again, this is a very tough one to predict as well, because, again, up to this point, Tigres is going to have a lot of advantage in terms of now able to play a lot of games in their home base. So I think that only goes up to like in the quarterfinal. I don't know if they will get home field advantage in this game against Orlando City. So yeah. With that being said, and again, the other factor I would say why maybe Liga MX's team will start fade away as the tournament goes along is the fact that not only they have to play away pretty much in every single game that they have. I mean, I know some of these teams does have their home base so far, but it's still not their stadium that they're playing. It's not a familiar environment, and eventually, when you play so many games in an unfamiliar environment, it's gonna take a toll on your team. It almost feels like what we see sometimes with MLS team going on a lengthy road trip. Near the end, it started to kind of take a toll on you, and maybe this is where it could maybe take a toll on Tigres. And not to mention, against an Orlando City side, they would love nothing but revenge in this game against Tigres after a couple of years in the Leagues Cup tournament. I'm gonna say Orlando's gonna do it. I think they're gonna make it to the final, and look what we have here. We have the MLS's back tournament rematch between the Portland Timbers and Orlando City. And again, I apologize to both of these team in advance that I guarantee this is not going to be the matchup in and I also will apologize in advance even to both of these teams if they get knocked out in the first round, because something tells me that that could also be a common case that can happen. But yeah, in this game between Portland versus Orlando City, again, you know that Orlando would want some revenge against Portland after what happened in the MLS's back tournament. They definitely haven't forgotten. But in a battle between two really good teams, I think Orlando's got the edge. So yes, I predict Orlando City as the Leeds Cup champion, and that means I apologize to Lions fans in advance, because that means they probably won't win the Leeds Cup, because again, so far when it comes to me doing prediction video and fill out the bracket, and I filled out the bracket at least for these knockout round a lot. Last year, I actually need to look at last year's video of who I actually picked as the team that win the whole thing. In fact, I don't know if I actually did a video last year in terms of filling out the bracket. Now that I'm saying, but yeah, usually when I fill out a bracket, it doesn't always come true. So yeah, again, apologize to Orlando City fans that I picked them to win this whole competition, even though it doesn't seem like that could happen. But hey, I'm kind of a guy. One thing, if you want to know about me when it comes to me picking teams. Usually, I pick teams that I think will have the upper edge in terms of quality, but I also pick teams when it comes to, to able to go on a deep run. And I've seen before when it comes to tournament play that usually these teams that gets in a good run of form heading into the Leagues Cup or even during the group stage. They're usually teams that could able to go deep in the tournament. I mean, we saw it last year when Nashville just kind of got hot at the right time. They went all the way to the final. Inter Miami, of course, everybody they had a feeling they were going to get to the final because again, everybody are saying that it feels like the Leagues Cup is scripted for Miami to win, and alas, they did win that tournament. Which again, that just that will definitely may prove a lot of the people think that yeah that Leeds Cup last year is scripted because we all knew that Miami was going to win that competition. But I feel like this year could be a little different because I truly believe this year you don't have that narrative of just simply one team that is scripted to win this. I think it should be a good tournament, and like I said, I apologize to Orlando City fans that I picked them to win, but we'll see how this tournament is gonna go. And either way, when this tournament does conclude, I'll definitely do a little recap of what I've seen in this Leagues Cup, and that includes the discussion about the whole boycott and whether or not do people still have that same feeling after this Leagues Cup as they did before? Where as one thing that people have forgotten is that coming into this Leagues Cup, there was a lot of controversy, a lot of displeasure that was shown around the MLS world. The fact that this tournament feels like it's definitely killing the heritage of what we see in the U.S. Open Cup. But I also thought that throughout this tournament, I'm kind of starting to see what I thought was going to happen, where this is always the case when it comes to controversial tournament. Yes, in the beginning there will be a lot of controversial talk coming into the tournament, and some people will say, well, that's ridiculous that this tournament is hosting. I'm not watching this. And then as soon as the tournament began, everybody forgot about that, and it feels like that's kind of the case right now. Like I haven't heard a lot of complaints from people. I mean, I have heard a little bit out of that, and if anything, I'm hearing more about how supporter groups are kind of making it are really missing out and kind of making a fool of themselves by missing out on these kind of Leagues Cup kind of actions. And I think this tournament has been very fun to see, and I always think that this tournament, even though yes, it does kind of sounds a little bit cash grab at time, it's a fun little kind of tournament that really reminds me something like the MLS's back tournament during the COVID year. But again, obviously the big discussion we'll definitely still have is the viewpoint going to change? I don't think the viewpoint is going to change with the way that people are still going to be upset the fact that this tournament feels like it's a use as a way to kill all of the U.S. Open Cup. But by God, this tournament has been entertaining to watch, and I'm excited to watch the knockout stage. And unlike in the group stage, I will actually review every single game, and that's going to be difficult too when we get to the round 32 because I already look at the schedule. Man, we have 10 games that's going to happen on Friday. And technically, I'll review 9 of them because I'll review well, I say I review every single League Cup game. I only review it if it involves an MLS team. If it's an all Liga MX affair, which I believe we have 2 in the round 32, I won't actually do a review out of that. But if it is involving an MLS team, I'll definitely do a review of it, and it's going to be tough on Friday because again, there's going to be 10 games that's going to happen. There's going to be at times where I think there's like 5 or 6 games at the same time, and yeah, there's going to be games where I'll probably have to watch the highlights or maybe just kind of tune in a little bit and maybe even tune into MLS 360 to check out how the game has gone on because again, I can only watch so much soccer and so much Leeds Cup action if Leeds Cup decide to throw so much game at me at the same time on Friday. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my prediction for the bracket. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this prediction, and again, if you disagree with my prediction, which I'm definitely thinking that there's gonna be people that's gonna disagree with my prediction. Let me know in the comments below as well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.